Danica Miles was an aspiring rapper with a fierce voice and a fearless heart, but when her lyrics exposed a dangerous truth about her past, she became a target. In a city where silence is survival, Danica's words ignited a deadly chain of events that no one saw coming. This is the story of how an aspiring female rapper was shot for mocking her relationship in her lyrics, and how her courage cost her everything. Danica Miles was a young woman with a fierce determination, and a dream that burned brighter than the streetlights in her neighborhood. Growing up in the tough, unforgiving streets of South Atlanta, she had witnessed hardship and violence from a young age. But instead of letting those challenges break her, Danica used them as fuel to create music that spoke the truth of her world. She wanted her voice to be heard, not just as another rapper chasing fame, but as a storyteller capturing real life in every verse. From the moment she picked up a microphone, it was clear that Danica had something special. Her style was raw and unfiltered, a powerful blend of emotion and grit. Unlike many who followed the trends, she rapped about her struggles, her relationships, and the streets that shaped her. Every line was personal, carrying the weight of experience and the sharp edge of honesty. It wasn't just music, it was a diary laid bare, with no filter to soften the pain or hide the scars. At 23, Danica had spent years perfecting her craft in the underground scene. Her beginnings were humble, recording tracks in borrowed bedrooms and basement studios where the equipment was old but the passion was fresh. The sound was rough, but her words cut deep, and soon the local community began to take notice. Her stage name, Nika Savage, reflected both her fierce attitude and her refusal to be tamed by the world around her. It was a name that commanded respect and hinted at the danger she was willing to face to make it. As her popularity grew, so did the attention she attracted. Fans loved her authenticity, especially young women who saw in her a reflection of their own struggles and hopes. Her social media began to fill with messages of support, while local radio stations started spinning her songs late at night. But with every rise, there were shadows lurking. The streets she rapped about were not forgiving, and the people in her life had their own complicated stories. Danica's relationship with a man known only as Trey was one of those stories. Trey was part of the same world but on a darker path, a drug runner with a reputation for violence and control. Their relationship was intense, marked by moments of affection and danger. To the outside world, they were an unlikely pair, but to Danica, he was a force she couldn't easily escape. The highs were addictive, but the lows left deep wounds. When the relationship ended, it was not quiet or clean. It left Danica shaken and angry, feelings she poured into her music. Her lyrics became sharper, more confrontational, touching on betrayal and fear. No longer just telling stories, she was revealing truths that were meant to stay hidden. The first track that broke through was called Bad Love Blues, and it quickly gained traction on SoundCloud and local blogs. The song spoke of heartbreak and pain, but it also carried a warning. This was no ordinary breakup song. Listeners sensed something more beneath the surface. Those close to Danica understood the risk she was taking by making her private life public. Trey was known to have a short fuse, and the streets had a way of settling scores. Yet, Danica refused to back down. She believed her words were her power, and that honesty was the only way to survive in a world built on lies. Her friends worried about her safety. Some urged her to soften her lyrics, to keep certain details to herself. But Danica was determined to stay true to who she was. Every verse was a battle cry, a declaration that she wouldn't be silenced or controlled. Her ambition pushed her forward, and soon she was booking shows at local clubs and community events. The underground scene was her home, and her performances were raw and electric, drawing crowds that hung on her every word. Behind the scenes, however, the pressure was mounting. Trey's presence in the neighborhood was like a shadow, always looming, watching. Word spread quickly among the locals about Danica's tracks and the messages they carried. Some saw her as brave, others as reckless. The tension between them was growing, but Danica kept her focus on the music and the future she dreamed of. She had started working with a small independent label, a step up from her solo SoundCloud days. This new deal gave her access to better equipment, professional producers, and the chance to reach audiences beyond her neighborhood. Her hope was that her story could resonate with more people, that her voice could inspire change rather than just echo pain. But the streets don't forgive so easily, and the truth she rapped about was like a match dropped into dry grass. The risks were rising with every new song, and the man she had once loved was becoming an enemy determined to make her pay for her words. Danica's rise was more than just the story of a young rapper chasing fame. It was the story of a girl fighting to claim her identity and tell her truth in a world that demanded silence. She was a spark in the dark, shining brightly against the odds, unaware of how dangerous her light would become. After the success of Bad Love Blues, Danica felt the momentum building beneath her feet. The track had captured something real, raw, and unfiltered, and her fans were responding with fierce loyalty. But it was her next song, Bulletproof Heart, that truly changed everything. It was darker, sharper, and far more personal. A bold confession wrapped in angry rhymes that exposed cracks in her life that many hadn't dared to speak about. Bulletproof Heart dropped quietly late one Friday night. At first, only her core followers noticed it on her SoundCloud page. But within hours, the song exploded across social media platforms. The beats were heavy and relentless, driving the intensity of the lyrics forward with an urgency that mirrored Danica's own turmoil. As the song spread, listeners were drawn in by the story unfolding in the verses, one of betrayal, control, and survival. The lyrics described a man who was once trusted but had become a source of pain. He manipulated her, threatened her, and tried to keep her under his thumb. The words were laced with vivid imagery and bitter truth. Danica painted a picture of someone who was dangerous, a figure both powerful and cruel. The most chilling lines hinted at bruises both physical and emotional, yet she stood strong and defiant, refusing to be broken. Within the local community, the song created a ripple of shock and gossip. People whispered that Danica had named names, though she never said Tre's name outright. The references were unmistakable to anyone who knew her story. Tre was known for his temper and his connections to violence. Many feared what his reaction would be, but Danica refused to take the song down or soften her message. The power of her lyrics lay in their truthfulness, but that truth came at a dangerous cost. Social media comments ranged from supportive cheers to veiled threats. Fans praised her bravery, calling her a voice for women who had suffered in silence. But others warned her to be careful, reminding her that the streets didn't forgive those who exposed secrets. As the song gained more attention, local blogs and radio shows debated its meaning. Some journalists praised Danica for breaking the cycle of fear that kept many silent, while others questioned the wisdom of airing personal disputes in such a public way. The controversy only increased interest in her music, drawing in listeners curious about the woman behind the words. Meanwhile, Danica was feeling the pressure mounting in her daily life. The sense of safety she once had was slipping away. She started noticing strange looks from people she passed on the streets, and messages on her phone that felt less friendly and more ominous. Her friends urged her to tone down her lyrics or take a break, but Danica was determined to keep going. Music was her weapon and her shield. Behind closed doors, Tre's anger grew like a storm ready to burst. Though he hadn't publicly responded to the song, those close to him knew his pride had been deeply wounded. To him, Danica's lyrics were not just words. They were a challenge, a threat to his control and reputation. His friends tried to calm him, warning him that escalating the situation could lead to trouble with the law or worse. But Tre was consumed by rage and humiliation. The neighborhood became a powder keg of tension. Rumors spread that Tre was planning to confront Danica, and whispers of violence circulated among local circles. Despite these warnings, Danica continued to perform, her shows growing larger as word of her talent spread. The places she played were mostly underground venues, small clubs, and basement parties where security was minimal. The energy was electric, but so was the risk. Her lyrics became sharper with each new track. She stopped hiding behind vague references and instead spoke openly about pain, betrayal, and survival. It was a form of therapy, but also a declaration. She would not be silenced or erased. One song included a line that sent chills through her listeners. He said, "I'd never leave without scars. I left with rhymes instead." This line quickly became a hashtag on social media, a symbol of Danica's resilience and courage. It inspired many but also seemed to provoke those she had called out. Despite the growing danger, Danica had begun to believe that her music could change things. She dreamed of signing with a bigger label, of reaching an audience far beyond her neighborhood. She imagined her songs playing on national radio and her name being known across the country. To her, the risk was worth it. However, The tension wasn't just in the streets or online. It followed her into the quiet moments, when she was alone or with close friends. She had started seeing shadows at the edges of her vision and felt the weight of constant fear pressing down on her. She changed her phone number multiple times and avoided posting her whereabouts on social media. Her family noticed the change. Danica was no longer the carefree young woman who had first stepped onto the stage. She was guarded, cautious, and always alert. Still, she refused to cancel shows or stop making music. The stage was the one place she could breathe, even if only for a little while. The night she released, Bulletproof Heart, marked a turning point, not just in her career but in her life. The song was a bold act of defiance, but it also lit a fuse that would lead to consequences no one could have predicted. What began as a personal story told in lyrics was quickly turning into a dangerous public saga. Danica's story was no longer just about music. It had become a fight for her survival. As the weeks passed after the release of Bulletproof Heart, the tension surrounding Danica's life grew thicker, almost suffocating. Friends and family noticed how she had become increasingly guarded, her once bright and carefree spirit now shadowed by an undercurrent of fear. It was clear that the danger wasn't just a rumor. Something real was closing in on her. Yet, Danica refused to let that fear control her. She was determined to keep moving forward, holding tight to the hope that her music could change her fate. Danica took serious steps to protect herself. She moved into her cousin's apartment in a different part of the city, a place she thought would offer some safety from the eyes and ears of her old neighborhood. She changed her phone number multiple times, limited her social media posts, and avoided sharing any information about her whereabouts. But no matter how careful she was, the threat seemed to find her. She confided in a few close friends about her growing paranoia. They shared stories of strange cars circling her block, unfamiliar faces watching from across the street, and eerie knocks on her door late at night. Danica's fear was no longer just in her mind. It was backed by real encounters. One night, she woke to the sound of someone trying to open the lock on her cousin's front door. The police were called, but no one was caught. Despite these frightening moments, Danica refused to cancel her upcoming shows. Her growing fan base looked forward to her performances, and she felt a responsibility to keep going. Music was her lifeline, and the only way she could fight back against the fear trying to close in on her. Security at her shows was minimal. Most of her gigs took place in small venues, underground clubs, local community centers, or even basements turned into makeshift stages. These places were packed with fans who admired her courage and raw talent, but offered little protection against the real dangers lurking outside. Danica's team was small, made up mostly of close friends who watched the crowd and tried to stay alert, but they weren't trained security. The night before what would become her last performance, Danica spent hours rehearsing a new setlist. She worked late into the evening, her voice rough but steady as she ran through songs that laid her heart bare. She had plans to debut some fresh tracks that continued to tell her story with brutal honesty. Her dream was to take her music beyond Atlanta, to share her truth with the world. But deep down she knew the risk was growing every day. On the morning of June 3rd, Danica left the rehearsal studio under a bright, clear sky. She was tired but hopeful, carrying her backpack and humming the chorus of one of her new songs. As she walked toward her cousin's car parked a few blocks away, the neighborhood around her buzzed with the usual sounds of daily life: children playing, neighbors chatting, and the hum of traffic. But then, everything changed in an instant. A dark blue sedan pulled up slowly behind her. Witnesses later described the car as moving at a deliberate, cautious pace, as if waiting for the right moment. Then, 5 rapid gunshots shattered the afternoon calm. Danica collapsed near the passenger side of the car, her body crumpling onto the pavement. The sedan sped away before anyone could react. People rushed to her side. Some tried to stop the bleeding, while others called 911. The police arrived quickly, but the scene was chaotic. No one had been able to get a clear look at the license plate or the faces of the shooters. The neighborhood was silent with shock, but the fear was louder than words. Danica was rushed to the hospital, where doctors fought to save her life. But the wounds were too severe. Within the hour, she was pronounced dead. News of her shooting spread like wildfire, and the community mourned the loss of a young woman whose voice had been growing louder every day. Her death sent shockwaves through Atlanta's music scene. Fans flooded social media with tributes, sharing videos of her performances and quotes from her songs. Many praised her bravery and authenticity, calling her a symbol of strength in a world that often tried to silence women like her. Yet beneath the outpouring of grief was a chilling question. Who would want to harm Danica, and why? Police investigations began immediately, but progress was slow. No clear suspects emerged, and witnesses were hesitant to come forward. Fear of retaliation kept many silent, a wall of silence protecting those involved. The case quickly became one of many unsolved shootings in the city, a tragic reminder of the dangers faced by young people caught between dreams and violence. In the days that followed, the media focused on the connection between Danica's lyrics and her murder. Some commentators argued that her music had made her a target, while others condemned the culture that allowed such violence to thrive. The line between art and reality blurred, leaving many to wonder if telling the truth had sealed her fate. As the investigation stalled, whispers of a break came from an unexpected place. An anonymous tip was called into a local radio station, revealing that the shooting was not a random act of violence, but a planned attack ordered by someone with a personal vendetta. This tip shifted the focus of the investigation and hinted at the dark underbelly of the story, the tangled web of love, betrayal, and revenge that had surrounded Danica for months. While the police worked to follow this new lead, the community was left grappling with the loss. Danica's music remained, a haunting reminder of the courage it took to speak out and the terrible price she paid. Her story was far from over, and the truth about her death would soon begin to unravel in ways no one expected. The day Danica was shot was bright and clear, the kind of sunny afternoon that usually brought life and laughter to the neighborhood. But that morning, something felt different. Danica had just finished her rehearsal and was walking toward her cousin's car, eager to get home and prepare for her next gig. The streets buzzed with the usual sounds of city life. Distant voices, the hum of engines, the occasional bark of a dog, but none of it could have prepared anyone for what happened next. As she crossed the block, a dark blue sedan rolled slowly behind her. The car moved at a deliberate pace, almost as if the driver was waiting for the perfect moment. A few neighbors caught sight of it, but didn't immediately suspect anything unusual. In a neighborhood where cars came and went constantly, a slow-moving vehicle wasn't out of place. Suddenly 5 sharp, rapid gunshots shattered the calm. The sound echoed off the buildings and sent people scrambling for cover. Danica collapsed near the passenger side of the car, the pavement beneath her stained with blood. The sedan sped away before anyone could react, disappearing into the maze of city streets. Witnesses rushed to her side, panic and disbelief flooding the air. Some tried to stop the bleeding, pressing their hands against the wounds in a desperate attempt to save her life. Others called emergency services, shouting for help over the ringing chaos. The first responders arrived quickly, but the damage was already done. Danica was rushed to the hospital, where doctors fought to stabilize her. The news spread rapidly across social media, with fans and friends sharing the heartbreaking update. Yet, despite the efforts of medical staff, Danica was pronounced dead within the hour. The city mourned the loss of a rising star, whose light had been extinguished too soon. The police launched an investigation immediately, combing through surveillance footage from nearby businesses and questioning anyone who might have seen something. But the case quickly grew complicated. The driver and shooter were unknown, the license plate of the car unreadable, and no witnesses willing to come forward with detailed information. Fear gripped the neighborhood, the silence was thick and unyielding. Rumors began to circulate that the shooting was not random. Many suspected it was connected to Danica's music, specifically the bold, personal lyrics that exposed her past relationship with Tra, a man with known ties to drugs and violence. While Trey had remained silent publicly, his reputation for having a temper and a controlling nature made him a prime suspect in the eyes of many. Days after the shooting, a surprising break came in the form of an anonymous tip to a local radio station. The caller claimed that Tree had not pulled the trigger himself, but had ordered the attack. The motive, the caller said, was to teach her a lesson for airing their private business in her songs. The tip reignited the investigation and focused law enforcement's attention on Trey and his associates. Detectives worked tirelessly to track down evidence, digging into phone records, financial transactions, and social connections. Surveillance footage from a gas station a few blocks from the shooting revealed a dark sedan matching the description parked just minutes before the attack. In the footage, a man known as Marcus Lil Skeet Coleman was seen purchasing cigarettes and acting nervously. Marcus was a known associate of Trey, involved in his drug operations and street dealings. With this new evidence, authorities arrested Marcus and began interrogating him. After hours of questioning, Marcus broke down and confessed that Trey had ordered the shooting. He claimed that Danica wasn't supposed to be killed, just intimidated. But the situation escalated beyond what was planned. Marcus described how Trey's jealousy and rage had blinded him, leading to a tragic and irreversible act. Following Marcus's confession, police intensified their search for Trey. He had gone into hiding, moving between relatives' homes outside of Atlanta to avoid arrest. But it was only a matter of time before he was found. Weeks later, Trey was apprehended at a house in a small town near Savannah. He denied involvement, but the mounting evidence and witness testimonies made his defense weak. The trial that followed was highly publicized, drawing intense media coverage. Prosecutors painted a picture of a man consumed by pride and anger, unable to accept that Danica had moved on and told her story through music. They argued that the murder was a brutal act of retaliation meant to silence a young woman who dared to speak her truth. Throughout the proceedings, Danica's music became a central theme, both a symbol of her courage and the cause of her tragic end. Her friends and family testified about her dreams and the strength she showed in the face of threats. Fans sent letters and messages, many inspired by her bravery and saddened by her loss. When the verdict was finally delivered, Trey was found guilty of murder and conspiracy. The courtroom was heavy with emotion as justice was served, but it was clear that no verdict could bring Danica back. Her life, cut short by violence, became a powerful reminder of the dangers faced by those who speak out against abuse and control. In the years that followed, Danica's story continued to resonate. Her music lived on, echoing through the streets she once walked and inspiring new generations of artists to find their voices. She became a symbol of defiance and strength, a young woman who dared to tell the truth and paid the ultimate price. Her legacy is a stark reminder that words can be powerful weapons, but they can also make someone a target. Danica's story is tragic, but it is also a testament to the courage it takes to live honestly and fiercely, even when the cost is high. After Trey's arrest, the community felt a cautious sense of relief mixed with lingering sorrow. The man they suspected had been behind Danica's murder was finally in custody, but the full story was far from over. In the days that followed,